Well, let's see if this is actually working. Hopefully it is. Sometimes with YouTube, I'm never quite 100% sure. Let's see. It should be possible to tell through here. Yep. Good, it's working. And give me a few minutes to add a few people in, or at least let them know. Let's see. Got to post the link a few places. Yep. There's number one. And the Discord. Okay, that put it there. Now put it here. And we should share it on Twitter. Oh, sorry, X. Blue sky. Well, sometimes these things take forever to start. Okay. Facebook. There, that's Facebook. Oh yeah, I almost forgot Threads. I think there are some people who follow me there. I have no idea, really. I don't really like Threads. There we are. Hopefully somebody will show up at some point. Now. Okay, so here we are. Let's talk weapons design, Meatball Weapons Design. Why do you want to do Meatball Weapons Design? Simple. Because you can't afford anything else. You're some small country and you've got a neighbor who's decided to get uppity. What do? You either fall over or you fight. And if you want to fight, you have to have weapons. Now, let's face it, there are weapons everywhere. You can go outside, pick up a rock, and you've got a perfectly serviceable weapon. It's limited, but it's serviceable. You can use it. People do use rocks. People still use sticks too. Just because something's old doesn't mean it isn't useful. It may not have the range of newer systems. And quite frankly, I'd rather have a machine gun than a rock, but that's just me. Mostly because I like surviving. So, what's the next point? Well, if you're going to get into looking at things, you have to consider countries. And when we say you have to consider countries, every situation is going to be different. Um, it's going to be predicated upon what you have in country plus what you can get. The what you have in country is the most important part. And I'll show you why. Let's do this. And yeah, I'm not doing this through a private tab because I don't want the CIA to know I'm here. I'm doing it through a private tab because, quite frankly, I'm trying to get them to not give me information according to my preferences. And there are lots of sites that do that. So the first thing we'd have to do is pick a country. Now, you could pick any country in the list. There's an absolutely enormous bunch of them. But let's just say you're a regular small, your average sized country. Now, at this point, if you're an average sized country, you probably have at least one university and probably at least one college, which covers the technical side of things. In other words, engineering. If you have that, you have the basis of a weapons industry. Even without that, you still have the basis. You know why? Because you probably have an airport. Airports have trained maintenance personnel. Now, I'm not going to say that you're going to turn around and take a trained maintenance person and turn them into a designer of fighter jets, but I'll bet you those guys could really hammer together some junky stuff that would fly and could carry a bomb, and they'd have the knowledge to add the servos in to control it. Isn't that what happened in Ukraine? Oh, and I should probably bring my microphone down. Yeah, it actually will pick me up over there because I talk so damn loud, but I should bring it down in front of me anyways. So you've got a situation where you've got all these parts in country that already give you a basis to start building drones. What if you have, in addition to an airport, you've got a model airplane club? Well, the guys at the airport might be good at the big stuff, but the model airplane club, they're going to excel at the small stuff. You want reconnaissance UAVs that are small and not noticeable? Guess who could probably put them together? And no, these guys aren't trained in aerodynamics and aeronautics technically. They just have a good basic knowledge. And if they have access to the internet, look at all the technical information they can get. You would be surprised at the sheer amount of data available in scientific publications on things like how to model airflow over surfaces. It is extensive. And you give somebody with a basic knowledge access to this and tell them, hey, you've got to do something, or, well, your country might not exist anymore. And all of a sudden, they've got this huge will to move forward. What else can we do? Oh, yeah, we're talking. Do you have a port? You have a port. You've most likely got people at this port who are trained in ship maintenance. You might even have some small ship building, lighter stuff like, say, 20 and 30 meter fishing boats. And from that, you've got the basis of a group that can build naval drones. No, it's not going to be fancy equipment. It's not going to look absolutely great. It's not going to be absolutely wonderful and the sort of thing that you absolutely want to have. But, it's the sort of thing that people do like having if they need defense. And naval drones are a lot cheaper than cruisers are, and destroyers and frigates. Way cheaper. Now, what about the land side. The land side's fun. Do you have a machine shop? Probably. You almost certainly have at least one machine shop in the country. If you've got a machine shop, you've got a place that can build guns. You know, we're talking rifles, submachine guns, that sort of thing. We're not talking high quality, maybe, but you can build it. Think World War II, where the British basically took a bunch of pieces of junk and called it a Sten gun. And, excuse me a moment, folks, my nose is just screaming at me tonight. Oh. Sorry, it's spring, and spring always does things to my nose. So there's a possibility right there. You could turn around and just basically turn out a bunch of submachine guns. Or, well, you could go for pistols, or you could start building mortars. See, here's the toxic waste. Oops, right. Couldn't believe it when I saw it at the store. Well, it's worth a try. It says it's green apple taste. It's nice. Anyway, and no, they're not paying me for that. Where was I? So you can build guns with a machine shop. If you have a machine shop, you can do really interesting things with landmines. Now, okay, it's going to be a metal one. It's detectable, but you could easily swap out most of the pieces for wood. That's been done in the past. Or you could use plastic. What about the internet? Have you folks ever heard of this wonderful little product called an FPGA? Okay, there's ARM's answer. So basically you can turn around and take this field programmable gate array and you can turn it into any chip you like as long as the array is big enough to hold that chip. If you've got a Nintendo, one of the Nintendo throwback consoles or a Sega throwback console or C64 Mini, you've got a machine with a field programmable gate array in it. It's, for stuff like that, you can use relatively small ones that are relatively inexpensive. For bigger stuff, well, the price goes up, of course, but you can swap stuff around. And of course, you can always just turn around and start tearing apart cell phones and pulling chips out of them. Why not? There's a lot of cell phones that are cheap enough. Hello, dog. Yeah, you can jump up there. Excuse me a second, folks. Dog is complaining there's something where he usually lies down. Here you are, guy. I gave you room. There. Hopefully he doesn't want another walk. You don't want another walk, do you? You would not believe the sad eyes on this dog. He is so hard done by. Yeah, I know, you're so hard done by. Come here. Come here. Come here. You tell me what you want. Do you want to go out? Is that what you want? Do you want to go out? Hey? What you want to do? What you want to do, guy? And yeah, this is his head here, right underneath my finger. That's how tall he is. So what do you want? If you want to play with a toy, you got to bring me a toy. If you want to go out, you got to tell me. If you want to lie on the bed, go lie on the bed. I guess humans not entertaining enough right now. Anyway, field programmable gate arrays are one thing. You've got all the chips that are powering all sorts of things. I mean, microwaves these days have circuitry, have small computer chips in them. Everything has computer chips in it. If they were still on sale, you could probably start ripping the chips out of Furbies, for Pete's sake, and using them to power some small drone. The opportunities are endless. There's so many things that are available in any country that it's absolutely scary. Okay, you want to build armored vehicles. Do you have a steel plant? Maybe, maybe not. But while you may not have a steel plant, you probably have a lot of welding shops that have heavy steel on hand, especially if you're dealing with any fabrication for the marine industry. And okay, it's not going to be face hardened. It's not going to really do a good job against the latest anti-tank rounds, but it'll sure as heck do a great job against machine gun bullets. And that matters. It keeps you alive. You've got other options. Think about all the farming equipment you have. Back in World War II, the country of New Zealand was terrified that the Japanese might bypass Australia and make a try it for them. A chap by the name of Bob Semple built a tank. You can find videos of the Bob Semple tank on YouTube. They are, well, how should I put it? It wasn't a very good tank. But the point is, you've got a bulldozer, you've got a tractor. Well, okay, preferably bulldozer. You want something tracked. You've got something tracked, you can turn it into an armored vehicle. It may not be a great armored vehicle, but it will work. And even wheeled vehicles can be turned into armored vehicles. Yeah, again, you've got limitations, but it's better than nothing. And that's the whole point of Meatball Weapons Design. It's better than nothing. If you don't have this, you've got nothing. You're defenseless. So you get inventive. It's what the Brits call what's the wording they use? Backshed engineering. People do it everywhere. People are always coming up with it. Just think of the number of inventors you've heard of who started off with nothing but an idea and then turned it into a successful product. Well, what if one of them happens to have a successful idea for a weapon? Yeah. One that's inexpensive and does 90% of the job of the 10 times the more expensive weapon. Okay, let's go back to the big stuff, the really big stuff, because, I mean, armored vehicles aren't that big. The really big stuff, super expensive stuff, is warplanes and warships. So what can you do in the way of warplanes? Well, it depends. Again, if you have an airport and you have people there, they can design basic planes. They may not be good, but they'll work. And if they can design a basic plane and they can design a rather basic hookup, they can lug a missile, also designed by somebody else using very basic technology, closer to the front line and fire it off. Hey. And we're talking basic technology. There's this story from a long time ago that I think a lot of you will, it always helps if you spell it right. Oh, okay, it was Yeah. There's one. They got now. There was also another one though. Okay, maybe it was a New Zealand guy. I thought it was an Australian chap who'd done it. But the point is that it's quite possible to do. There's limitations. You're not going to build a stealth cruise missile. At least, well, okay, you could build in some stealth materials, but unless you have the technical data, which the major militaries have and are hoarding, and the major military contractors, you're not going to be able to build something as effective. But yeah, you could maybe reduce its radar cross section by a half or a third, and at that point, that makes a huge difference too. So there's a guy who builds a cruise missile in his garage. If you can build a cruise missile in your garage, why can't you build an aircraft in your garage? Well, people have. Let's see. Home built fighter jet. Now, okay. That's probably the quickest way to find it, is to go through here. Oh. No, it's not going to be that useful. Oh well, sometimes. Viper jet. Okay, that's the one I was thinking of. That looks almost identical to the Dornier Alpha jet, going by memory. And thanks. No, I'm really not interested. So, is it supersonic? No. But it's useful. Could you make it supersonic? Probably barely. At this point, you're going beyond me because I don't know enough aerodynamics. I don't think that would be capable of supersonic flight, at least not very comfortably. I have a suspicion that there'd be too much turbulence. But I'm going by guesswork based on some memories of stuff I've read in the past, and I'm probably totally wrong. So there is that. Think about it. That's not an expensive aircraft. Nor did it take the abilities of Boeing, Lockheed Martin, or any of the other big guys to make it. And there are a huge amount of things that are actually available out there that are really interesting. Just a second. You know, as long as you've got connection to the internet and you can get some something into your country. Hire Han Solo to bring it in. Okay. Some of these are models, but some of them are actual. Just a second. Nope. That's a toy. Hold on. Now another model. That's what we want, gas turbine. So, here we are. Interesting price, huh? Specifications, okay. So that's 330 millimeters and 1.2 meters long. Weight, 69,000 grams. So 69 kilograms. Oh, not that much. Thrust. Now, as you can see, this isn't very big, but it doesn't have to be. Now, let's see if they do anything else on. Oh, okay, they're one of those guys that does everything. So that's not going to be much use. Okay, there's another one. £100 thrust. What was this one? Thrust was... And I don't remember what DANs are. I don't know if I ever did know what DANs are. Point is, there's a fair bit of stuff here. Now, if we cheat and sort by price, hold on. That one's straight electrical, which kind of limits it. Okay. I should have looked into this first. Okay. Now, these are the large ones. Here you are, Williams International. You might want to buy some engines from them. They're in the right range. Now, of course, we want to avoid Russian, but gas turbine research establishment might be a choice. I don't know how good they are. Eventual Progress is interesting because that's in Ukraine, and they've made a lot of engines. Motor Sich. So there's a few choices out there. Now, there's Japan. I'd forgotten about that. And I wouldn't touch Chinese again because they're a possible rival, but I'm thinking in terms of Canada. Quite frankly, if you're looking at things from the point of view of, hey, we're broke, Klima might be a decent choice. After all, you don't really care if they don't last all that long. Same with the Chinese. North Korean, I have no idea whether or not they work or not. Iranian turbofans, I understand, do. And Turkey has one manufacturer. Here's the fun part. These engines are difficult and easy at the same time. They were building jet engines back in the 30s, nearly a century ago. So building something new, it's better than was building something better than what was available in the 50s or 60s or even 70s isn't going to be that big of a jump. And another point to consider is our good old friends in the 3D additive business. You may not be able to build a engine plant to manufacture turbine blades the old way, but you could quite easily get a laser fusion setup and build your turbine blades that way. Be expensive, but it's better than nothing. And in emergencies, you could do that. Now, I'd prefer to buy something off of here, but anyway. Now, we weren't talking missiles. Missiles are an interesting thing. Missiles have been in use for well over 1,000 years. I can't remember the earliest attested date in China, but rockets have been in use a long time. The basics aren't that hard. If you really want to learn, listen to Leslie Fish's song, Black Powder and Alcohol. In that song, she gives you the exact proportions needed to make black powder. The very oldest and most basic explosive that the human race has known. Now, there's better stuff than black powder, but black powder is a good start. There's a lot of stuff that you can make in the way of explosives relatively simply using fairly easy to handle methods. When I say easy to handle, they're dangerous as hell. Don't get me wrong. You're dealing with explosives. Explosives have this nasty tendency to decide to rearrange the landscape if you aren't careful, very careful. So yeah, there's a lot of danger involved, but the processes themselves aren't that difficult. It's the danger that comes into it. That's why if you saw fireworks factories back in the days when fireworks were still made in North America, and I did see one, that was made of a bunch of little huts all separated. Yeah. If one went up, it didn't take the others or the neighborhood. And since the workers lived in the neighborhood, that was kind of important. These explosives can be used in any one of a number of ways. That basically depends on how creative you want to be. You can build mortars using bombs. You can drop bombs using drones. You can build landmines. Variations on explosives are used as propellants for artillery shells and for rifle ammunition. Again, this is not difficult stuff. It's all basics, and there's documentation all over the internet explaining how this works. If you have a relatively basic understanding of chemistry, like say second or third year university, you can work your way through this stuff and make it come out. Again, it's dangerous. You've got to be cautious. There's more than, I don't know how many people making black powder blowing themselves sky high over the years, but I would really not recommend it as an experience. It tends to suck. And what else? Oh yeah, ships. Now ships is the fun part. I mentioned drones. You can make relatively small stuff easily. When I say relatively small stuff, you aren't talking blue sea, you're talking brown water, coastal. And most countries have an ability to build, some ability to build coastal boats. The big problem is getting the engines. Again, engines aren't that horribly hard to pick up. There's a huge market in engines out there, and you can take your pick. The big problem, of course, is buying them. But buying them is going to be a lot cheaper than actually buying the boat built complete. Now, as far as weapons on the boats, well, you've got your rockets, you've got all that sort of stuff. You've got sensors. Well, we were talking about the FPGAs earlier. FPGAs can be hooked up with, or any type of chip can be hooked up with small optical sensors and used in a variety of ways. You can even build radars. Radars are not that difficult. During World War II, the South African Defense Forces and the Canadian Air Force, Royal Canadian Air Force, both designed and built their own radar systems. Yes, they had some technical help from the British, but those systems were indigenous. They weren't built with British parts. They were built to be made locally and serviced locally. So the sea lanes got cut off, stuff was still available. And that was back in then. What do you think a bunch of smart guys can do now? You get a couple of guys from a technical university, give them some specifications on frequencies, and they can figure stuff out. You don't believe me? Ever hear of a product called the Fuzzbuster? Hell no, most of you are probably too young. The Fuzzbuster was the very first police radar detector. And they sold like hotcakes. People loved them. And I understand there's still a black market on the darn things. But if you can make a radar detector, you can make a radar system. And yes, it may not be as fancy as the newest AEs and radars, but it doesn't have to be. If it does the job, okay, yeah. Maybe they can detect somebody at 120 kilometers and you can only detect them at 50. 50 is better than nothing, man. So there's all sorts of options you've got there. There's things that you can do as a small country that can quite literally cause a larger country absolute nightmares. and nightmares that they don't want to have to deal with. And that's just the way it is. There's so many options. People misunderstand this. Yeah, you're not going to build an F-35 or an F-47. That takes a lot of time, a lot of engineering work. You don't have the time, you don't have the money. But you could probably toss out, within a couple years, an equivalent to a F-4 Phantom or a MiG-21. And that ain't bad. Anyway, that's it for this evening. Have a good evening, folks. If you enjoyed this, please share it. Like, subscribe, and all that junk, which I keep on forgetting to say. As you may have gathered, this was completely unscripted. I wanted to see if anybody would pop in. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like anybody did, but hey, it still gave me a chance to ramble. So, talk to you later. Bye-bye.